Hi, Rob. Thank you for meeting with me today. My name is Holly, and as a student learning about trauma and healing, I had some questions. How does unresolved trauma play a role in our negative mindset? We kind of get into these depressed, sad, judgmental mindsets, and how does that affect us on a day-to-day basis?
I'd like to share this quickly that there are 13 trauma types that I put together. There are a little more. Maybe we can have another interview about it where I will show you and then the viewers what they are about, because when you see them, then you realize, OMG, right? I had no idea. I have that too, like so on and so forth. But to give you a 10,000-foot view answer to the question is that once we have any kind of trauma, emotional, physical, sexual, and there's like 9 more, what happens in the back of our minds is that we become extremely hypervigilant. We develop all kinds of irrational fears. And at the same time, we also develop massive inner rages. The rage is very silent. Quite often, we don't even know we have it because we suppress it, but it will surface 15 or 20 years later in the form of medical conditions, illnesses, or even violent outbreaks. And if we don't heal the traumas correctly, which very few people on this planet actually know how to heal trauma correctly and precisely, then we can pretty much expect that this violence, this inner rage, and a lot of these depressing thoughts then eventually come to the surface and literally take over. Now, the good news is that you can certainly, with the right technique, with the right mentorship, you can definitely heal it. You can heal it fast, but you have to know that specific recipe.
Wonderful, thank you. And people often talk about maintaining a high vibe attitude, or you see a lot of times, like, oh, high vibe, no negativity here kind of thing. And it seems very superficial. To kind of gain a better understanding of what that actually means, what are the potential consequences of kind of living in this, superficial, high vibe atmosphere when really we're not?
Okay, no, I love the question because believe it or not, the most dangerous thing we can do is fake something. Even though there's the saying, fake it till you make it. Our vibration that we emit to the universe that manifests is not just what we think about right now. It's pretty much everything that we have ever thought before. And when people say high vibe only, what they mean is that they are temporarily tuning their mind to feel better, to go to a higher positive timeline or higher vibrational timeline. However, back to your question is that they ignore and try to delete the negative experiences they have ever had, such as the traumas, the significant emotional events, the breakups, the heartbreaks, and you cannot overpower something. So in other words, an affirmation that we like to believe that it will fix everything. I am now releasing my trauma. Well, you know what happens? The moment you say an affirmation, the universe says, that's interesting. Now let me show you what is in the way of your wish. And all of a sudden the bottom falls out and we end up with 10,000 unwanted things because the I am statement, the affirmation we made, is incongruent with our cleanliness of the mind, which is our level of healedness or level of evolution, if you will. So high vibes only, and I can get into all kinds of details because there's a superficial explanation, there's a medium depth explanation, there's a really deep explanation, but people who are only or believe that high vibes only actually are violating a universal law, and they are going to pay a very hefty consequence. Okay, and the consequence is beyond what I care to share in this interview, or maybe we can do another one. But in other words, when we do this high vibe only, denying all of our traumas, all of our sorrows, all of our things, before actually is a denial of the creator, is a denial of wholeness. And that denial then gets us into all kinds of karmic loops, which are not pretty. Now, let me segue a little bit back, because I think you asked the previous question, like, how people end up in negative circumstances. And I'll give a technical enough answer where I think people can relate. If it's not relatable, then please ask some clarifying questions. When we get traumatized, we don't just roll over and say, oh, Mr. Perpetrator, thank you for the experience. I'm going to take away the positive learning and I'll move on with joy and bliss. Hell no, right? What we do is if we are overpowered and we are not quite as strong as the perpetrator, then we tend to agree with them, but underneath now we are planning vengeance. The energy of vengeance, and then there's planning many more things, but I just picked one because it's easy to relate. And we're planning vengeance. However, the moment you start planning vengeance, you actually are planning vengeance against yourself. You're planning vengeance against the world, against the creator, but those pieces are not obvious. And when we have this vengeful energy, which most traumatized people do, unconscious, then other vengeful activities, events, and people will be manifested in their lives. And it's just one of the thousands of manifestations, the unwanted manifestations. Okay, so that's why I always like to tell people, like, you know, even though there's a certain element of shame associated with traumas, because like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Here's sort of a really cool twist to all this. The twist is that the heavier the trauma is, the bigger our life purpose. Okay, every single one of us came here with a very divine, a very unique and divine gift that is underneath, unfortunately, underneath of all of our traumas. We will not be able to fully deliver our divine gift until we remove the traumas, heal all those layers, and then finally reach our divine gift and then master it, because, you know, that also will need a little practice. Was this helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Okay.
thank you. Yes. And because it's like I had a third question about how folks often find themselves in a repetitive loop of negativity, and they kind of, you know, it's a rabbit hole of, you know, people can go any which way, you know, whether it be bankruptcy, divorce, addiction, you know, there's all a whole variety of different scenarios. And I find that the pyramid reference is a good representation of that, as well as kind of like what keeps us in that low mode. So ultimately, it's based on what you've described. It sounds like without clearing, you know, all of the traumas, why it's so important that we do that you will stay in a negative loop, that you will, and it will just get exponentially more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, this is, you know, really complex. I'm always trying to give the best answer that is digestible. You know, I don't want to do a PhD level presentation, but I really want people to understand the necessity of it and the significance of it. And the negative loops quite often don't come right away. We recover from the trauma, we go to maybe like a support group, and, you know, we feel better because we feel supported. But underneath, nobody knows how to release the rage, all of our vengeances, all of our hatred, all of our self-hatred. And there's like 1,000 more things that we develop, and it just fans out. And those things are like seeds, like weeds, eventually start to take over. You know, so the garden will be green, but it's not the kind of thing, not the kind of green that you want. So the negativity comes from the unresolved traumas and the unresolved unconscious components as a result of the trauma or traumas. We don't just have one, we have pretty much everything. And one is not visible until this one is lifted, and then the veil reveals the next layer, and so on and so forth. But people who experience any kind of medical condition, let it be breast cancer, for example, I work with ladies who had that. It's an absolute guarantee that they had some heavy sexual trauma, typically a rape, because, you know, every body organ symbolizes something, and the breasts for ladies represent their femininity. Quite often, women who develop ovarian cancer have been molested as children. I mean, these are terrible things, but, you know, unfortunately, the reality of things is that it happens all the time. It happens a lot more than we care to admit. And then, you know, we can certainly heal it. You know, this has been suppressed, by the way. You have no idea. I'll share something personal. You have no idea how many times I've been attacked, how many thousands of times I've been attacked by heavily traumatized people. I know the psychology of it, but, you know, at one point I was like, okay, you know what? If you guys want to keep your pain, congratulations, you get to do it. It's ridiculous. And that's another negative loop of traumatized people, is that they become so disgruntled that they attack the hand that or feeds them. They bite the hand that feeds them. And the ego creates a really sneaky sort of a strategy where they start siding with the ones that don't give them any benefit, but rather team up to gang up on the ones that actually could help. Really strange. It's almost like an inverted logic. And that's why it's very important to use logic, because we are driven by our emotions, and they are so chaotic that if you are not willing to take a step back away from your chaotic emotions and go, what the heck am I doing? Right? And then seek help, the ego is gonna keep us in that loop. Okay. So the negativity is unfortunately is an ever self-perpetuating process. And, sometimes it starts with circling thoughts, then, it's kind of like a runaway train. Okay. What was this?
No, it's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
a really good explanation. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay. So if you have anything else, then please, reach out. It's always a pleasure to share this. The world needs it. Back in even last year, we lived in a totally different world. This is now a new sun world. Humanity has gone up a few notches in consciousness, and this is the next must if we want to make it to the new world. So I'm super excited.
Thank you, Rob.
Take care.